right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, regardless of where you are joining us from. Welcome to the April session of the HR Tech Couch Club. My name is Lydia from Whoops, Did I Think That Out Loud? And as usual, we've got Martha, Mercedes, and today we are featuring Priya from the newsletter AI Lady. So, folks, I know we've got a few new faces in the RSVP list. So, Mercedes, Martha, for the sake of those who are new and joining us, can I ask you to both do a quick intro of yourselves again? And Priya, we will wrap our intro session with you.
Sure. So Martha Curioni, I have an extensive HR background I started doing a lot of people analytics from a strategy perspective. About 5 years ago, I decided to teach myself data science with many resources, not that I taught myself. And so now I do people analytics and pretty much love everything that I can consume about AI, HR or not. And that's me, Mercedes.
Hi, I'm Mercedes Sullivan. I am a VP of People Transformation for McKinley, which is a multifamily workforce housing company. But before that, I spent over 10 years in HR at a larger organization. So doing HR PMO, implementing end-to-end, doing audits and compliance and everything nobody else wants to do. And what I really, 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 really want is for work to not suck and for us to be able to have more time to have these kinds of awesome conversations. So welcome and thank you, Lydia.
Awesome. Yes, HR cleanup crew should be a new job title these days. Last but not least, Priya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priya Tahiliani. So what do I do? Well, when your company is growing and your HR systems start to feel like outdated, they feel like they need a restart or a reboot, that's where I come in. And I help you make sense of your HR tech, optimize your processes, remove inefficiencies, eliminate waste, if you will, so that you can help your employees and your leaders with new tools and a better user experience.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Priya. And folks, if you are just joining us on LinkedIn Live, this is literally a live session, completely unsponsored. We call it the Couch Club because we're all just coming here to hang out on a Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the month. So if you're listening to us and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or just ideas you want to share in general, feel free to drop those in the comment section. They will pop up for us. Also, it's just a good tech check for us to make sure that we are up and live. So if you can just let us know where you are joining us from, that'd be super, super helpful. All right, ladies. So first question of the day to get us all started. And Mercedes, I'm going to start with you. What is a recent hashtag AI fail that you experienced that you thought was really, really brilliant at the time?
I want to take it in the personal for a little bit. And yeah, I don't know if it was a fail more than like so I use ChatGPT to help me process emotions and other things like that. And recently I started thinking, is this thing just people pleasing me and telling me what I want to hear? So I asked it, hey, are you just telling me what I want to hear? And it replied, yes. And it was so sad because I feel so not validated at the moment, because then I asked it to be objective about a certain thing that I had just experienced. And man, it was cruel to hear like the real truth. I'm like, damn, that hurt my feelings. And I go back to the therapist. But well, it was a feeling that I felt like crap afterwards. It was actually really good because it got me thinking about all the times that I do not ask it to challenge my thinking. And it was a big, big lesson learned for me. And now I literally ask it to just be gentle and kind when it gives me advice, or when I'm working to just tell me all the blind spots that I'm not looking at. So that was fun. How about you?
Oh man. Okay, so many fails. So first and foremost, disclosure, I think this might be the first time you guys are hearing about this too, but I've been like poking around how to build my own agents in the back end. So it's been a lot of trial and error. I thought learning macro coding on Excel was bad before until you have to figure out how to train your own agents. This is like a new level of logical mind bender, because here's the thing: if you screw up an Excel macro, at least the whole thing won't run, and then you know that something went south in your entire process, right? coding your own AI agent, you don't know that you've accidentally coded two conflicting ideas into the agent until you've asked your agent, like, hey, that doesn't sound right. Where the heck did you get that idea from? They're like, oh, yeah, you told me in this file to do this, and you told me in that file to do that. And you're just like, OMG. Okay, welcome, brain. Let's join the process a little bit. But one of the sort of funny kind of like, I think this tells the evolution of AI fails that I've had recently is my annual subscription to Grammarly. Okay, nothing against Grammarly. So I still firmly believe in them. I still believe in their grammar and spelling checks. However, they've done some really quirky things to their AI assisted writing tool that it makes you sound robotic. Like literally, if I were to sort of have any one of my blog articles fully vetted by Grammarly, it would sound like I'm trying to write a thesis or like some formal essay to the point where I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound like me, so I'm just gonna keep hitting ignore unless you're telling me that I spelled vacuum wrong with like too many C's or too many U's, or I spelled the word broccoli wrong or something along those lines. So yeah, there's that. Wrangling AI tools.
So then at that point, you're almost, I mean, it's no different than like Word or something,
It's
right?
no different than spell
Exactly
check,
right.
except this is the weirdest thing. And I don't know if anyone listening to us experiences the same, and welcome, Devin. But if you have experienced the same, put those in the comment box as well. But for me, it's like Grammarly still does a better job on picking up the verb tenses with the intention of what you're trying to write in the whole paragraph. Whereas like the spelling check, it just kind of like picks it up in sort of that little 5-word sequence, if you will.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I just wanted to add that that's one thing I get asked the most. Like, what's the difference between these AI tools like Grammarly and all and using ChatGPT or Copilot, right? You can literally ask ChatGPT and Copilot what you want, the tone, number of words, and like who is the audience, give it all of that. That's not quite possible with Grammarly. Grammarly learns your tone over a period of time, but it takes time, like you said. And that's where prompting comes into picture.
Yeah, for sure. So Priya, speaking of that, question for you. Why are we talking about prompting today? So you picked the topic, as we do with all of our Tech Couch guests. Why prompting specifically?
Why prompting? All right. So I'm going to start with the story. My friend came to visit my place a couple of weeks ago, and she's going through a turbulent patch in her life, wasn't feeling very good. So I was like, just come over, let's chat. You'll open up, you'll feel better. And so we sit on the table, she's sitting across me, and she starts by asking me a question. Priya, I want to get a dog. What dog do I get? Because I have a dog, I have a lab, and he's like a 4-year-old big puppy. And of course, by looking at me, like, our family, she felt that having a dog would be a good companion. She can take the dog out for a walk, get some fresh air, just get a life. So that was her idea of getting a dog. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure ChatGPT can give you the answer to what dog can you get. But my question to you is, why do you even want a dog? Certain things about a dog will be able to help you, but like, considering your routine, you travel a lot, you have a lot of night outs, where will the dog be? Have you thought about those things as well? The dog might end up like, limiting you from going and living your life. Well, it'll also help you sometimes, but then think about those aspects as well. And she's like, wow, like, I didn't think about those things. And then I feel the same thing goes with ChatGPT and these AI tools as well. If you ask AI something, it's going to give you back the answer to like what Mercedes said. It's kind of like a people pleaser. Well, if you are asking me something, here it is. Here is the answer for you. But then like, these tools are only as smart as the prompt. So it's up to us. It's up to like, that critical thinking piece and inquisitiveness that make these tools smarter. So I would say that don't just, ask ChatGPT or Copilot that, hey, this is what I think, help me do this. Give it the context, the background, and how did you arrive at something that you wanted to do. And I think that's where prompting comes into picture, and that's why prompting.
Yeah, Totally hear you. Martha, I think we've got a greeting from the audience for you from Beth. So over to you next then, Martha, since Beth called on you. What does prompting mean to you? Like when we hear the word prompting, what do you think of? Like, have your perception changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, I do think prompting has changed over the last couple of years, right? It used to be, there was very specific like rules. You heard a lot about prompt engineering and so forth. And I do think the tools are getting better so that maybe you don't have to be an expert, a prompt engineer to be able to get what you need out of the tool, or to Priya's point, to be able to avoid only getting something that maybe doesn't consider all of your context and so forth. But the prompting really does allow you to provide that context, right? The context of, hey, I am a single woman that likes to travel and likes to go out and do this, that, and the other. Is it a good idea to have a dog, right? It allows you to be able to put some guardrails and some boundaries, whether it's, I need to work within these parameters, or, my audience is, not somebody who's very data literate. So I need to be able to explain things in common terms, or maybe I'm not that data literate, which is obviously hopefully not the case considering my job. But, if I'm, if it's somebody else, I'm not that data literate, explain this to me in a way that I'm going to understand it, right? It allows you to be able to get what you need from the tool, as opposed to it just regurgitating information at you that is not going to be relevant to your specific situation.
Yeah, I hear you. Mercedes, what about you? When I say prompting, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so plus one to what Martha said, but to me, I always go back to the same as project managers. We try to make all these fancy tools to make project management better and automate, but really at the end of the day, the best project managers to me know how to scope, what questions to ask at the beginning and how to ask them, so that then you can get the better answer, right? So otherwise, if I'm asking the wrong thing, I'm gonna solve for the wrong problem. And my dog is chiming in. Sorry.
Priya, another reason for your friend why you may or may not want a dog. I appreciate it.
Tell your friend your dog prompts in the middle of the live
I'll share
session.
the recording with her.
But so like I remember too, when I started my career at CEB, now Gartner, one of the things that we were so valuable is because there was so much information now with the internet. What was the value is that we can curate the right thing. So for me, it's asking the right question in the right context, and it's always going to help you differentiate whatever comes out from the same tool is going to be more important than ever. The last thing I will say, I just checked that the number one use case for GPT is like this personal or therapeutic things. Incredibly important, because if you do not know what you're asking, you're not going to get the right thing. It's going to apply to work as well.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I heard this at a conference session, so this idea is not entirely my own, but someone did say the whole idea of prompting is about language. It's about the fact that you can actually talk to computers using English language instead of writing lines of code. And if we think about it, it's almost like a communication skill that we're sharpening at this point, except on the receiving end is a machine and not necessarily a human. But to what both of you just said, and what Priya said previously as well, it's about how you coherently put an idea together to make sure that what you put into it is what you get out of it. Kind of like teaching a first-year consulting analyst a little bit. So if any of you have worked in consulting in the past, feel free to drop that in the comment, because that's generally how I feel talking to ChatGPT sometimes.
Didn't you write an oops article about that as well?
Possibly. I don't remember, but it does sound like something I would have said. Okay, so here's a question then. Most of the HR technology tools we see on the market today have AI features, right? Just kind of like plug us in, we'll run on top of this stack, we'll help you do XYZ type of thing. So why is prompting still important for HR? Like, why should our audiences still care about prompting? Priya?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So tools versus prompting, right? Tools in my mind is like, think about it this way. You are traveling somewhere and you end up booking a tour bus that's going to take you around. It's got limited stops. You can't change the itinerary. You can't have any detours. That's what a tool is. You have a set number of features. You have to use that. You don't know what's behind in the black box. But now, on the other hand, prompting is like open ended. It's like you don't book a tour bus, you design your own itinerary, and then you can take as many stops as you want. You can, like, see as many places as you want to see. You aren't limited or restricted to like touring in a bus. That's the kind of freedom prompting gives you, like really digging into the details, working with AI tools. I would not say using AI tools, I would almost say like partnering and collaborating with AI tools, right? And like understanding different perspectives and new ideas and challenging your own thoughts. Like I said in the beginning, not going to ChatGPT with like, what dog should I get? Like, this is my environment, this is my background, this is the phase of life I am in. I think getting a dog makes sense for me because I've seen Priya, she has a dog. Her dog is super amazing. Like, I want a dog. Is it the right thing for you? And that's how I'll compare tools with prompting, that freedom.
Yeah, makes sense. Martha or Mercedes?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me, and to me there are different purposes. One is more like workflowing, like as you said, but I do like the prompting because it helps with the thinking. It helps me refine. Am I thinking this right? Can you translate this to a different audience? Just skilling, can you help me make this more concise, which is not helping me yet enough. You still have some work to do in teaching me, but it's still there and it's still needed. Maybe in the future it isn't. And one of the things that I'm noticing more and more is that I'm using the voice feature, but I want to go back to thinking around the difference between typing versus talking, because for me, typing makes me slow down and think and process and write, versus writing is just like, talking is just whatever. And so I'm still thinking it through that on what that looks like. But for right now, I still think we need like the workflowy stuff. And then the prompting is very important for critical thinking skills and asking it what's next. What I'm thinking about is what is going to happen when we go from typing to just voice. Just like when we stopped doing like cursive, my mom is a speech therapist and she was explaining to me what it was doing to rewire our brain by not doing that. I wonder what it's going to do for our thinking when we start moving along. But I'm a fan of the prompting. I think it keeps me sharp. And I also like asking it, what am I missing? What should have I asked you? And so, but who knows,
I
right?
think
These things change so fast.
I think
I don't know anything.
thinking about like that example of like going from cursive to now just print and like what's going to happen. I was listening to a podcast where this man was talking about this future where like people aren't going to have to write anymore. And to me, I'm a very visual learner and I struggle with the idea of only getting things audio or like video. I don't like video all the time because my brain is going faster than the video. But if I do it to like speed up the video, then it just seems unnatural. So a lot of times I opt for the written version and I read it because I can skim it and read it and get what I need and move on. And so the idea of like skipping, for me, typing is actually a process of imprinting things into my brain, right? So whereas for you, you're exploring with audio, for me, audio isn't going to work as well in terms of me being able to grasp what it is that I'm trying to think through. So it's just like different people with different learning styles and so forth. It's going to be interesting how these tools evolve and whether or not they're going to consider these different learning styles, I guess.
It's so interesting you both said that. And I see one of our audiences saying, like, I hate talking to AI. So I am like 80% in the I hate talking to AI camp because it just feels weird. It's like I'm talking to a computer screen. This is why I don't think AI interviewers will work very well on me if I know I'm talking to a computer, because how you interact with a machine is still fundamentally different than how you interact with a human. And I don't think as a society we've moved far along enough yet to sort of make it mutually similar, if you will. But that's that. So I started out typing with ChatGPT and everything else. And 2 weeks ago, I found myself in a situation where I was in a heated debate / conversation, if you will, with my ChatGPT. Yes, one can get into that stage, as I found out. And I was like, you know what? I need to start talking to it because I can't type fast enough to get all the ideas out of my head. And it was just like that very, very minor switch. I was like, OMG, honey, you're talking to a robot. What is wrong with you? But then simultaneously, I'm like, oh, I can see how there's also like an evolution of communication that happens, Martha, to your point, as there is a level of familiarity with AI that kind of grows along the way as well. So just wanted to share that story because I kind of had that moment of like, why am I talking to a robot? This is really, really weird.
But if I can add just three quick things. One, I love typing by hand. So I type, I take a picture, and I ask it to transcribe. I hate going to a meeting when there's but things taking notes. I don't want to say anything. It freaks me out. And I'm like, where are the humans? Like, get this thing out of here. Although I didn't see the benefit of it later. I'm like, no one still reads the notes anyway. So that's not a computer problem. That's a notes problem. The one thing that I do love the voice for is when I did my keynote at the Shared Services Conference, I trained with the voice, and it was totally people pleasing me because my husband's like, I know it said it was a good transition, but that transition sucked. And so I had the human in the loop, my husband. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But for me, if I don't write, I don't learn. And if I have to listen to an audiobook, I have to restart it 50 times with my ADHD. I can't do it.
Yeah,
So
totally
we'll
hear
see.
ya.
Yeah.
We have someone saying the way I talk to AI is a bit different. I think of it as free writing, super unstructured. Just keep it going and let it summarize it. Yep. I also go on verbal diarrhea when I talk to AI. As I realize, because here's the thing, right? Like when I type, I don't know if you guys go through this. It becomes like one of those things where like, okay, succinct sentences, period, comma, let me give you a semicolon to split the ideas and everything else. When I talk and you see the speech to text transcriptions afterwards, it becomes like triple the amount of content that I would have done otherwise. And on top of it, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of ums and ahs, and I'm talking like I'm just kind of going on a single sentence with no beginning or end at this point. All right. So quick pivot. I know Priya's got some tips and tricks for us, which we will pull up very shortly here. One last question for all of us here before we kind of cut over to that. What is the most surprising or like one of the most helpful use cases for prompting that you have seen in HR or you have experienced? Whoever wants to go first.
I have so many, and I think I'll cover it when you present the slides, Lydia.
All right. Martha, Mercedes?
So for me, I'm going to say that I use it a lot in the work that I'm doing and working with clients in terms of doing analysis and so forth. And I really like to use it to challenge my thinking, right? So I already know, okay, this is the question I have. This is the data hub. This is what I would do. But I just want to make sure that, I'm not rushing, that I'm not missing something or what have you. And so then I will, I'll just prompt it and say, I'm an HR analyst. I'm doing, I have this kind of data. I've been asked this question. My audience is not very data literate, and I just want to make sure that I'm thinking through all of the different ways that I should analyze this data or try to answer this question, right? And then I kind of go back and forth with it. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, are you sure about that? And then we'll, oh yeah, you're right. That's not a good idea or what have you. So we'll kind of debate and so forth. And, most of the time, it's kind of leads along the thinking that I was already thinking. But there are times where I'm like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. Or it'll validate if I'm not too sure about something. I'm like, would this really kind of address this? And it'll be like, yes, and here's why. And I like that or maybe I've just trained my ChatGPT enough to be able to like explain the rationale behind it, to say, this is why it makes sense. And then I can read that and say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or I can read that and say, okay, no, that's they're people pleasing to Mercedes' point, right? And so that's kind of how I use it. But again, that prompting, if I've learned that over time, because when I didn't do that prompting of setting the stage at the front end, a lot of times the quality of what I got wasn't so great, or maybe it would completely skip steps, or it would not consider something. I'm like, actually, I can't do that kind of test because my data, is not normal or it's whatever, right? And so it will, but saying, I want help with efficient syntax for my Python code and things like that. It helps and saves a lot of time, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Mercedes?
For me, one of the things that have been so helpful to me, so I moved from a white collar situation to a distributed workforce that's mainly blue collar and service. And one of the last prompts I used was taking into consideration a couple of industry experts or frameworks from certain places. And given my context, and this is the outcomes that I want to achieve, help me with my digital or whatever strategy. And obviously it's not 100%, but I've been shocked how far it takes it. And then doing the research function and this is the enterprise GPT, by the way, don't be using your personal one for your stuff, but attrition rates, what's normal for my context or things like that. And it's been really, really helpful in finding me time to think through, with the caveat that recently I was doing a personal post, I think I was telling you earlier, and I asked it for a quote, and I was about to totally post this quote because it sounded amazing, but it turned out the quote didn't exist at all. So my caveat is that now I'm starting to have the trust issue. I'm like, where do I go to validate that this is true? And so this is where I think for helping you think about the future, but understanding that you're the one in charge, not the thing, even if it's smart, is very, very important. But I can see more and more when you're starting to get statistics or quotes or anything like that. Like, I don't even know where to go double check because I don't know where the source of the data is coming from. Where's the cutoff date? What am I missing? So yeah, Lydia, I think to your point, just asking it to be a thought partner and strategizing has been really helpful. I'm getting worried about the more tactical things because I don't feel like I can trust it always.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, sorry, even if you ask it, like, can you point out where, can you give me your source or what have you? Like, I remember one time it was telling me I could do a Fisher's test, which is a statistical test with multiple variables in Python. And I was like, no, you can only do it in R. And it was like, yes, you can do it in Python. And I was like, can you show me the documentation? And it was like, here's a link to the documentation. And I'm like, I read the documentation. It doesn't show anywhere. It says you can only be to a 2x2, right? And it was like arguing with me until I gave up. I was like, thumbs down, feedback. But you have to, even when you ask for the sources, or when you ask it to verify, I mean, this was a while back, right? So hopefully it would be better now.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see that being the case with other things now, right?
Yeah.
I just want to add something over there is like when you see it like starting to lose context and like going nowhere, what I do is I start a new prompt again because sometimes it's got too much context and it's like totally confused and it's obvious. So starting a fresh prompt, a fresh thing works for me. And then what I do is I collect all the prompts that I've given it, like all the back and forth. I put it into one main prompt, and then that becomes the first prompt. And so it gets some of the context already, and it's like a fresh start for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think 2 tips I have for the audience. So number 1, related to what Martha shared, my guiding thing in life, if you will, is be lazy. And I think in being lazy, I found a lot of ingenious tips, if you will, and I'm not going to exert extra effort unless I absolutely have to. And what I realized is like, you don't have to know how to write a prompt to do a really good prompt. Because sometimes if I get really, really lazy, for example, I'm doing a product test with a friend right now, and they're like, oh, it's for recruiters, you need to be able to put a job description in there. And I was like, OMG, when was the last time I even wrote a job description? So I went on ChatGPT the other day and I was like, I need a job description. But then I'm like, I don't want to write 3 paragraphs of the job description that I want. So I'm like, I need a job description. Ask me 10 questions of what you need to know for you to generate a job description for me. So effectively what I did, I was like, I need a job description. You're going to give me 10 bullets on the top prompts that you would need to write a really good job description. I'm going to answer your question accordingly based on what I need, and we're just going to move on with our lives. So that's one thing that I've figured out how to sort of hack my way around the prompting bit. The second thing, Mercedes, to what you said, which is like trusting the sources, finding it on the internet. So this is sort of like a weird ChatGPT hack that not many people know about. So I think we talked about the knowledge cutoff date of like all of the LLMs a while back. And you were talking about you don't know when the knowledge cutoff is. but ChatGPT does search the internet for you. So I think there's, but not many people know exactly how to get ChatGPT to wire itself to the internet. So if you ever want a knowledge check or just kind of like pull the latest past the knowledge cutoff day for whatever reason, what I do is just like, okay, go search the web and answer the question again. Go pull the latest and compare that to your answer, and then tell me what's different. So it's kind of becoming a lot easier to do that than running Perplexity and ChatGPT at the same time, trying to validate like what's out there and what ChatGPT didn't catch in their latest model in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally.
with that in mind, Priya, I'm going to kick it over to you, and we are going to talk about prompting tips. So folks, if you are listening to us on LinkedIn Live and joining us, please feel free to drop any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, tips, whatever there is, into the comment boxes. We will definitely get to those as we go along the session here. Priya, over to you.
One quick thing before Priya goes in. On the point that you made, Lydia, the thing that I like to often add at the end of my prompt is ask any clarifying questions before you answer me, because then that will make sure that it doesn't just start making assumptions on your part, but it'll actually say like, this is my understanding. I don't have any clarifying questions. If that's correct, let's get going, type of thing. And so that's another one to add to your list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Ahead,
Perfect. Couple of things I heard, and I personally, what I feel is like having that GPT Pro subscription, $20 is the best investment I have made in my life. Like, it gives me so much flexibility. I can put screenshots like in ChatGPT and ask it to make sense of that. Like recently, I work on SAP Success Factors. Things keep changing in my world almost every month. And so I wanted to know, I saw a new button and I was like, this looks new. This has not been around. And what is this button, right? And so what I did is I took a screenshot of that screen and I threw it in ChatGPT and I asked it, I see something new on the screen. What is this? And boom, it came back with a detailed description of that new feature, which otherwise, if I went the old way of like trying to figure out what it is, I would have gone to Google, came across like so many blog articles, and then gotten to the answer, right? So that's what a pro subscription allows you to do. You can search web, you can do deep research, and in that it takes its own time to come out with like, it's almost like Perplexity at some point.
I still have a side question for you if they actually put that into their release notes or not, but that's a different question for a different day.
N number of use cases. All right. So why prompting? Let me clear my throat. Sorry.
Oh, you're totally fine.
I'm sitting in my sister's room. She wasn't keeping well. She was down with flu, and I think I'm catching the virus little by little. All right. So, as you know, I also have a newsletter. And in my recent newsletter, I wrote this article with a very hot take and a very provocative title that HR should lead AI, period. And of course, I was hoping people to come back with, hey, why do you think that, and whatnot, right? And it did happen, since it was a very provocative statement. But I truly believe in that, and I have made that my mission, because I have helped my company's HR team lead AI. So I'm confident HR can do it. But then this one guy posts a comment that HR can't even lead themselves. HR is the most discriminatory department there is in the organization. Why don't you do one thing? Start with small steps. And I'm like, this guy clearly hasn't read my article, because if he would have read my article, he would have known I'm talking about small steps. And prompting, I would say, is a small step. We aren't talking like rocket science. We aren't talking something fancy. Prompting is something that anyone can learn. It's just, the way we speak, the way we are speaking on the call now, it's the same way, at least I speak with ChatGPT. And in my experience, it has given me better responses. And that's why in my mind, prompting is so important, because we in HR and other functions as well in the organization, but let's talk about HR. We ask of our leaders, employees, to do so much. And mostly we are seen as an overhead in the organization. When you ask someone to complete a performance appraisal or like a skills assessment, I guarantee you won't have them complete in the first time. You will have to send them reminders, and then they're going to keep aside a Friday to like do all those things because they truly think it's an overhead, right? Let's be honest about that. And that's exactly where prompting comes into picture, is to handle these overhead tasks. Like, think about it in a way that you can give your leaders, a toolkit, a prompt toolkit, that hey, these are the prompts. When you are evaluating an employee, use these, plus use your own judgment and common sense and expertise, but start somewhere, give them a starting point. That's where I would say prompting comes into picture, be it for skills assessment, for performance appraisal, for writing job descriptions, like Lydia said. There are times I've seen that the job requisitions, the postings get delayed because leaders don't have time to come up with a fancy job description. So we in HR, I think, can truly enable leaders and employees by giving them some starting point, and prompting is that starting point that will help them do their work faster. And so when we talk about prompts, like, any AI tool has the world's, like, a lot of knowledge, the world's knowledge. So how do you ask it to do what you want it to do? By wearing a certain hat. So it is by assigning it skills, by assigning it a role. On the screen, we see that if it's about writing a job description, you ask AI to act as the world's best talent advisor. I would say add one more step, like challenge it, that you have filled the vacancies in a record time of 30 days. Like, challenge it. You have always filled vacancies on time, on budget. The next thing, assign a task. Tell that you want to promote this vacancy on LinkedIn, give it some more context, some background, that these vacancies, because you know what has happened with these type of vacancies in the past. Maybe these vacancies took time to fill. They were like very niche roles, and the posting was on for like so many weeks and months. Tell it all those details, that this is what has happened in the past. It took time to fill. And then you tell it a goal, but it took time to fill in the past, and now I want to fill this within a month. So that's the goal for your AI tool. Then provide examples. You may have come across some recruiter who had an amazing LinkedIn post, got so much engagement, whereas your posts in the past have been like simple, plain, which didn't get as much engagement. So, give it an example of a LinkedIn post. That's fair. And then assign a tone to it. Like, who is your target audience? Who are you, like, targeting and focusing on? So all these elements put together in a prompt, a role, task, context, background, goal, examples, and tone. And even, like, maybe in 100 words, in 150 words, whatever. This put together will be a game changer. And I would
Can I
encourage.
just jump in for a second here? Because I think you said something that was really interesting, like challenge her, like really push her, right? You filled it in the record time of 30 days, 5 days, whatever it may be. And I think that's something that's super interesting that not a lot of us think about when we are writing prompts, which is it doesn't have to be real. Like the scenario doesn't have to exist in the real world. It's almost like a lot of times we talk about best practices in the market. What is everybody else doing? With AI, you can sort of push above and beyond to say, if this is what everyone else is doing at the 80% mark, I need you to go and assume 100% mark and tell me what that looks like. And then let me work my way backwards. So I think that's definitely a great tip for the audiences here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have
Awesome.
a question. Like, well, one, it made me think that we're going to end up managing in AI's burnout and anxiety soon. They're like, these humans are asking too much. No, but the one thing that you said that is the one thing that I found that doesn't work, but maybe works now. When I ask it to do certain amount of words or letters or what have you, that doesn't seem to work. Is that fixed now? Because everything else good, but that one I was like, oh, make it whatever, and then I started actually like counting. And it wasn't even close. All right. Is that fixed?
Well, I would say, like, if it didn't meet the requirements, if it didn't come back with those many number of words, I would be like, hey, didn't you read my instructions? I told you to come back with 100 words.
I've had
gotta
similar
test it
issues
again.
though.
Whilst being polite, of course.
I
I've
gotta
had
test
similar
it again.
issues though. Like I'll say rewrite this, and I need to shorten it by 3 words, and it'll say here it's shortened by exactly 3 words, and I'm like, that's the same exact thing I gave you. Can you try again? So it's not perfect. To
It's
Lydia's
not
point, it's still you're very junior employee that you're trying to train and so forth. The thing on here that stood out to me, it was last week, I think I used it to promote this event, was somebody wrote an article. It was through the Directionally Correct podcast. They wrote like a blog or something where they talked about the oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but it's the anchoring bias. Sorry, there you go. And essentially so when I saw the providing examples, what they said was that when you provide examples, you can also anchor it, right? So the example that they gave was they were using data to answer, the age-old question of who's the best basketball player of all time. And depending on, they were saying, they had some prompts where it was like, it was something around like how to weight different variables, different data points, and so forth, and what the output should be. For example, this variable is X, right? So, and when they gave it that prompt, they found that more times than not, that variable was weighed a lot heavier than others. And so I just want to caution, like when you're giving examples, think about the context, think about what it is that you're giving them and how that may or may not shape the output that you get in a way that you want or don't want it to, because it's going to essentially anchor to whatever those examples are. So be very thoughtful about that.
Yeah, for
Good,
sure.
good.
And I think, Mercedes, going back to your whole thing about like a word count, I don't know if everybody on here knows about this, going back to what Priya said, which is like the best $20 a month you'll ever spend. I am more convinced of it in the last month since the new release, because effectively you can ask for exports to come out in Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint, and like Word documents, essentially. So that whole employee handbook thing that we've been using in HR for Lord knows how long, since the creation of AI, as an example of a use case, you can literally do it on your own without having to buy a tool or anything else, because it just exports the documents for you immediately. So something to think about. So Priya, I know we've got a couple other things here. If I can find my cursor, there we go. Okay, talk to us a little bit more about assigning the skill, refining, iterating, so on and so forth.
So some more things, like you said, Lydia, that God knows, uh, our documents and policies and procedure guides are from Stone Age, right? Like, how do we refine it now? And we already know, like, some of them have not worked for us even in the past. And of course, like in these in this day and age when things are moving so fast, we need to refine our guides as well. So over here, I would give it that kind of an example, like, assign a skill and then refine it. Like refine our existing mentorship framework to better align with the new strategies that we have implemented, right? You might have implemented a skills-based organization, but your mentorship is still relying on the old ways of working. So like ask it to refine its approach to give it like some freshness and perspective, and then iterate, introduce like some innovative matching methods and engagement techniques to increase participation. Perhaps in the past you rolled out a program which didn't give it the outcome you were hoping. The engagement was low, the interest was low, the adoption was low. And so ask it like some innovative engagement techniques to increase all those things. Challenge it, and then specify you know um, the technology that can be leveraged. Maybe there's a new way of doing things, a new tool that can give you better results. Ask it to like introduce you to those tools as well, because maybe in doing my work the way I have been doing it, I'm not very like I'm not thinking like of how else I can do it, or what other tools can I use to do it. And so many things have changed out there. And then evaluate, come back with an evaluation metrics of how will you measure the KPI, how will you know whether it's successful. these are again some things I'll pack in a prompt when I want to refine something, when I want to like upgrade something. It can be a policy, it can be a program, it can be anything to do with anything in HR.
Gotcha. And I think something that's really interesting that I've discovered recently, it's weirdly helpful in a kind of snarky way. So what I'll do sometimes, and I did this recently for a post that's about to go out, but I'm going to ask the question like, okay, how we brainstorm this, right? Like how we think through what it could look like to, let's say, take a ROI business case for people analytics. How would you build it? Blah, blah, blah. And like, we kind of go back and forth on a couple ideas. And finally, I will ask my ChatGPT the question like, okay, now act like an absolute ruthless business executive who runs a Fortune 500 company, et cetera, and give it a whole profile. I'm like, okay, now grill everything that we just talked about and tell me everything that is wrong with it and what you would pick on. So the outputs are interesting to say the least, because it's still the same narrative that HR has heard over and over again. But I think it's almost like forcing it to give you a different lens to your point of evaluating it. It's kind of like getting the AI to evaluate its own outputs through that prompting.
Yep. I'd like to add that, we talk mostly about treating AI like an intern, but I would challenge that and say, like, treat it like your partner. You want to partner and collaborate with AI and not just use it in the way that you have done things so far, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Something interesting I want to share when you shared the prompt, that recently I was on LinkedIn and I came across this guy in Australia, and I think like something like off track, not related to HR, but I thought was very interesting. He wanted to get his car's sound system replaced. It was a faulty one. He ran out of warranty, and he goes to this showroom to get it replaced, and he's asked to pay $10,000. And now this guy is like super pissed. He comes back, he uses ChatGPT to figure out, how is there something, first of all, that he is missing, that the company thinks, he is too dumb to understand. So this is the kind of like, prompt that he creates and puts it in ChatGPT, like, dig out all the tribunals, all the trials, all the cases, and tell me, how can I make this company's Monday the worst Monday?
Wow.
So people
I'm kind of there on the
was
pettiness. I am kind of there on the pettiness a little bit.
I thought I was petty when I trained it to be petty, but that's a whole new level. Please tag me next time. Damn.
So people are getting creative, but like again, like in my experience, I have seen AI picks up your tone, it picks up your energy and vibe, and you want it to be like collaborative and positive. So I would ask you to watch out for the tone, and like because you're going to continue to collaborate with that same system, with that AI, and it's learning your tone, it's learning your personality and your behavior. When you wanted to write something for you, you don't want to sound like somebody who nobody wants to listen to, right? So yeah,
So
I
A
thought
good
this
level of
was
petty is
yeah,
okay. A good level of petty is okay. A little bit of petty.
Well, yeah, a little bit
acceptable.
petty is okay, but this is actually a really good tip for everyone. So do not share your AI accounts. And this is the reason why I say this, right? Because I have a subscription to ChatGPT essentially, and my husband was using it for something else the other day. Even though he was using it incognito mode or whatever, I think there was a couple conversations that went into my regular conversation flow. There is a level of memory retention and tonality retention where he kind of came back and told me, he's like, hey, your chat GPT sounds like you sometimes. And I was like, what are we talking about? This is a little bit weird. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that it picks up your personality, and it's almost like you're tuning it into how your brain works in a way, to the point where you kind of can't have interferences in there unless you're okay with putting up with the aftermath of it.
I agree with
It's
that.
like when you go on Google and you get like YouTube, and you get recommendations that you're like, okay, somebody else has been looking at my YouTube account because I don't know why that's coming up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They're Netflix cheating on you. They're like putting things they watch. But I want to go back to Lydia, your point around the executive like destroying your points to get, and I love that. I also use it to tell me what I'm missing. But increasingly is how would this same information land in for the different roles in my organization? And like if I was this employee, how would that land? And it's really helping me see a lot of my blind spots quicker.
Oh, for sure.
And like I always keep talking about like love languages, right? Like HR is like acts of service, and everybody that we serve is like we just want like words of affirmation or whatever. So like how does it help us not only the what we're doing, but how we're doing it, so that we can better understand each other? And of course, the bias comes in everywhere. Like we're teaching it's our own bias, but if we help it enough, it can be objective at the moment more than us where we bring our whole self with our energy
Yeah.
of the day. So
Yeah.
I really love to use it to challenge my assumptions and to show me what I'm missing.
Yeah, for sure.
And talking about
Okay, last 10 minutes left on the live. So before we get into sort of like the pro tips, one prompt you wish every HR person used, all of that fun stuff, and before I pull the slides back up here, I have to ask a question. This is like the age-old question. Do you say please and thank you to your AI? Like, are you polite with it? Does it work? Is it a rumor? Who wants to go first?
this is very timely question, and I'm going to refer my phone because I have this saved. Recently, somebody posted or asked Sam Altman on X that how much does saying please and thank you cost OpenAI, and should we do it? As a matter, like, should we do it? And
You're talking about from like a
Sam Altman,
ESG perspective, like the energy waste and stuff like that.
exactly, that's the one, and it's very interesting. Using polite language sets a tone for the response, and it clocks politeness. But even a 3-word like "you are welcome" uses 1.5 ounces of water, and a 100-word email that is generated uses 3 bottles of water. So that's the kind of computing power AI needs to get you the responses. So, but in my mind, even if it costs, 1.5 ounces of water, we should be thinking about, framing our prompts better. So we are not going back and forth a lot with AI, then not saying a thank you or whatever to AI and being polite, right? Like, think about it. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, so it's
for
like if
sure.
you're more efficient in other places, then you
Right.
can afford the please and thank you. For me, I don't know if it changes the output per se, but I do think that, because I say please and thank you, it's very polite coming back to me. And I, at least, am somebody, because I'm an extrovert and I'm somebody that I feed off of like other people, the way they speak to me and talk to me. And I know it's AI and I'm not trying to personify it, but if I'm collaborating, regularly with AI, sometimes more, sometimes AI is the only like thing that I talk to during my workday. If I'm not getting politeness back, like I worry how that's going to affect my mood, right? And so that's kind of why I do it. But then also reflecting on what you were saying, Lydia, in terms of it starts to pick up on your tone and it starts to pick up on this, that, and the other. Like, how are you going to eventually, as ChatGPT now, they just launched, or they just shared that they're going to start to have memory, and a lot of the other tools will as well, where they actually know you at a much deeper level. And if you're not saying please and thank you, like, how is that going to shape how the tool then works for you later, and so forth? And so I'm gonna agree with you, Priya, that I will make my prompts a lot more succinct and correct so that I can avoid back and forth and still leave in my please and thank you.
Yeah. So funny story, and then we'll go to Mercedes. So the other day I was typing to ChatGPT back and forth, and because at this point it's like 2 years down the road, I think half of my brain is downloaded into that thing as we stand. It responds with like a whole paragraph, and it kind of goes, "Now that's a vibe," and I was like, "Did I just train you to use the word vibe in your response? Like, what? How do I talk to you that in your response that you would come back with that's a vibe?" Anyway, Mercedes, go on.
You know what? Yes, and mine sometimes throws words in Spanish to be kind and what have you. So it's very interesting. But to me, I don't want to lose the human. So I can't not please and thank you, because everything's a habit. So if I stop doing it there, I want to stop doing it elsewhere. So I do it unconsciously, but I do not want to miss the human. The minute we stop that, even the thing I have, I'm like, can you develop feelings for it? I don't know. You all know that I have my little boyfriend experiment with AI, well, for another time. But for me, it's just a matter of my habits, because how you talk to it, how you feel your energy is how you show up in the world. I'm plus one to everything else you all said.
It's
Absolutely.
just good to
All
be
right,
nice.
last 5 minutes to go. So Priya, I'm going to ask for a quick 3-minute tour on your tips to the audience, and then we're going to wrap with around the room one tip from all of us.
There we go. The first one, compliment AI. Say it, please, and thank you. Ask AI to be a critic. We already discussed, ask it to show you things, the blind spots you may be missing, new perspectives, and be open to those. Make it like a collaborative effort and not just like using it, partner with it. Um, Ask AI to explain things to you in a simple way as if it would to a fifth grader. Right? Like some things, especially in my world of HR tech, are like very not easy to understand. So that's where I use AI a lot to explain things like very succinctly and simply. Challenge AI, tell it you can do better. Like Mercedes, to your point, if it didn't come back with 100 words and you found 3, 4 words extra, you know, challenge it, tell it you can do better. You can come back with 100 words. Why aren't you? Try it again. And ask AI to act like your role model. Act like Bill Gates. Anybody who you admire and learn from. Literally, you can use AI as your personal coach and use it as if you were collaborate with it as if you were partnering and learning from your role model. For example, I have Josh Person over here because he's a very well-known name in HR. So these are some pro tips I would offer. And to what I said initially, create prompts and share those with your team to make their life easy. I recently attended a Future of Work conference here in Toronto, and the vice president of HR tech at Manulife, the insurance and asset management company, she ran a promptathon at Manulife, a promptathon, like a hackathon or a marathon. And she encouraged, her team to create use cases. And now they have a whole library of AI prompts. So that's how important these prompts are. And you would see like some are reusable prompts, like performance evaluation, writing some content, job descriptions can be reused. So now we have reached a point of like we have so many good prompts. Where do we store them, right? Like I don't want to store them in Google Drives and Word documents and then keep looking and searching for them when I really need it. So I use this tool that's on the next page, Lydia. It's goodprompt.com, GUDPROMPT. This is an amazing prompt management system which helps me save my prompts, and I can even share prompts because creating a prompt now is content creation. And so you can share prompts and bookmark them, create collections. If you have like a related topic of everything related to recruiting, job requisition and whatnot, is one collection. Because when you work on that, you want to refer 3, 4 prompts, so save that as a collection. So that's what I have been doing using this prompt management system, and I would encourage people who are here with us to try it out. And it even
Awesome.
generates new prompts. So if you don't want to sit back and spend time and like giving the AI a role, a skill, context, background, it even helps generate a prompt with just one single line of your idea.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Priya. Really quick, 1 minute around the room, 30-second each, starting from Mercedes, going to Martha, wrapping with Priya. One prompt you want every HR person listening to this to take away and use. Go for it.
Challenge it, but I ask it to challenge you. Remember, otherwise you're your own echo chamber.
Awesome. Martha?
Especially when it's high stakes, ask it to explain its assumptions or its thinking so that you can decide if you agree or not.
Priya?
I would say asking it to be more inclusive and thinking of like different perspectives, avoiding trying to prevent biases, that's very important.
Awesome. Mine is the same. Excuse me. Mine is the same as Mercedes, which is really along the lines of act as my devil's advocate, act as a business executive, look at everything I just shared with you. What else can you say about it? What can you add to it? All right. And that brings us right to the top of the hour. So thank you so much, Priya, for putting together the content, for joining us on the April session of the HR Tech Couch Club. And for those in the audience, thank you so much for joining us for another session. We will be back in May, topic to be determined, but stay tuned to all of our LinkedIn channels. And by the way, you can follow all of us on LinkedIn. We're pretty active posters. And we will continue the conversation about AI in HR. So have a good one, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Bye.